Grover, this is from what I was working on, Force of Nature. Grover is Carl's brother, and this is one of the chapters I wrote that I put on Transcendia.org. It's now in the fiction section, and here it is. These things are often I try and make them like prose poems when I can write them anymore. And whenever I did get to writing this, the writing came easy till I came to a point where there was supposed to be a love scene in an airplane, and something stopped me. I couldn't write it. I couldn't write the love scene. I couldn't write sex. I didn't want to write it. This is one of the chapters that I was proud of. If I keep going, if I get encouraged. I kind of used to be where you write 3 chapters and you show them to somebody and they'd give you the money to finish it. That was the idea. You got an advance. Now you can go and buy The Revolutionary on Amazon.com. I gotta use my full name, Russell Scott Day, to find anything there. There's also the short story Twice. That's $3.99 or 99 cents. Here on Transcendia.org, you can only make donations or buy. You can buy if you can look for hard enough, you can find down on the left, far at the bottom, just where it says apparel, you can buy Transcendian apparel on Cafe Press, or buttons and stuff like that. The flag's always on it. I made it up and then things sold, and I never made any money on it yet, but time will tell. You're there. You're here. Grover bought his wife some shoes at the Belks downtown. He hated it in the tight, cramped streets of downtown Durham. He preferred to be at the gas station or playing cards at the Elks. Paul and Buddy were fishing. He thought about going to find them, but just drove aimlessly around in the Pontiac until he found himself on the fringe street past Roxborough Road, where the whore kept an apartment. She was upstairs and ran up the side of the 2-story thick white paint side and clapboard outside walls of the split-up house that had once been a home to someone prolific family. He had trouble fitting the Pontiac down the tight drive past the wild boxwood shrubs and scrub and cedar, honeysuckle, and all other manner of competing grasses and weeds run up in the wire fence, till he was parked in the back on the thin gravel facing another fence overrun by vines. There was another car there, a 38 Ford with a swoop down the back end. Grover turned on the radio and listened to part of a football game between Duke and Carolina. He had played football for Duke. He'd been quarterback, captain, and he listened to the game, remembering the way the guys had looked at him in the huddle. It had always been interesting to him when he saw others move along with his will. The flying adventure with Carl had made him and the rest of the poker table laugh to tears in the telling. As his 3 years younger brother, he puzzled when he found himself vulnerable to Carl's influence. Riley had to keep the upper hand, and so he had emphasized every misstep of his brother. And the way Carl's head had a perpetual scab somewhere on his scalp now, still secretly to himself, he had admitted that he was swayed, and it had been hatching in his own mind that the family might need to go into another business. He himself was tired of the gas station, and the tractor-trailers they ran didn't seem to be making as much money for the family as they ought to. He was dreading the trip to New York with one of their hired drivers and the load of cigarettes. He knew he needed to find out what really was going on, and had suspected that somewhere along the line the family was being robbed. Grover didn't want to leave, didn't want to have to go back to driving himself, as they had done when his father had put the brothers behind the wheels of anything that moved, as soon as they were big enough to fight the machines and the weather and anyone who was stupid enough to attempt to stop them. His father had to quit driving himself after he had beaten near to death a teamster on the docks who had threatened him. After Paul was hijacked, they had all bought pistols, but hadn't had to use them except for show after his father found a business agent to pay off so they could get in and out of the Brooklyn Pier. Still, the whole thing had seemed more trouble than it was worth sometimes. The guy who had been with the whore came down the stairs. Grover looked at his watch. It was 4:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday, and he had a box of shoes for his wife on the floor in the front of the car. He had started the car and backed up, turning when the whore came out, stood outside her door on the landing. She was smiling and looking down at him, and when he backed into the place he had been parked in, he parked in the other direction. She was wearing a flowered dress that hung clasped to her hips and fit tight to her moderate but perfect breast, in his opinion. He thought he would miss her when she graduated from NC State. She had come down from Carbondale, Illinois, where she had worked for a madame in a brothel that started school at the University of and had started school at the University of Chicago for nursing. First time he had a black girl was when he was 15, and it was always part of his secret life, only shared with others who had lives and interests like his and knew the need for secrecy and information, shared over cigarettes and beer or liquor on the back porches of poker games, taking a break from the game. It was a nice day, and he had some time. His dutiful but bony wife would not miss him or expect him till dinner time, so he got out of the car and walked across the gravel and up the stairs. She stood there smiling and looked down at him as he came up the stairs, looking at his feet till they got close and could near smell her. She had an unusual smell to him, clean and musky at the same time. Her matter-of-factness and technical skill and the thicker feel of her skin was what he bought. "Well, Carlotta, you got anything left for me?" Your visitor seemed young enough. Grover said when she stepped back, opening the door and inviting him in. "I heard your car and got a look out the window and got him gone in right good time, I thought." Her face coming up out of her chest and the smooth brown skin framed by the flowered dress was there round and brown curves of her body and eyes and cheeks and face with lips twice as big and soft as his white woman. She turned and took a bottle out of the cabinet and poured him some scotch into a glass and put it on the white enamel of the kitchen table. Grover sat down and she stood leaning her butt on the edge of the kitchen sink. Carlotta thought he was the largest of any white man she had given it to, and she liked him for his lack of timidity or worry. She had taken to thinking of him as the Dutchman, remembering how the Dutch had been different as far as white people she had come across. He reminded of her pimp, who she had researched and made an agreement with when she had come to town looking for protection and humor. Once on her own, she had imagined the two of them with her. She kept such thinking to herself in a private ration that she regularly and carefully regulated unspoken. Her father had been a butcher in Chicago, and her mother had resented it when Carlotta had become old enough and commented on the uncles and cousins who visited when her father was at work. She hadn't seen her father since she was 7, but she remembered him as big and shaped much the same as the man sitting in the hard wooden chair at the chrome-legged, white enameled table in the apartment kitchen where she lived and worked. She knew exactly what she would do with him in just a little while. He would finish the drink and look at her, and she would go into the bedroom and he would follow. Grover wasn't looking at her face, but at the V formed by the lay of her dress, as she still leaned back against the kitchen sink when he asked, "Have you ever been in an airplane, Carlotta?" "No," she said. "Black people don't fly. You know that, Mr. Grover." It was 7:15 when Grover left. He marveled that he felt no guilt about what he had seen under his hands. "Black people don't fly," was a wisp of a thought as he drove out between the houses and out towards his home. He wondered what size shoes Carlotta wore and planned to get her some shoes as a present. The one thing he really knew about women was that they liked shoes. Okay. Alright, well, that was out of Force of Nature chapters, and that was Grover's chapter, and this is 13 minutes, and I can't, no, yeah, this is 13:28, and that's long. I hope you listened to it, but that's how I read it.